I'm sitting here with Brian Matiash. Now, his show, The Key, is so stunning, just so stunning, and it's of Urbex photography, which we don't often think of as necessarily beautiful, but his is. It is stunning. Hi, Brian.
Hi, what's going on, Karen?
Well, I'm talking to you. That's
That
that's the
that's
only
true.
thing. Yeah, it is true. That's the only thing we need to know right now. Except there is one more thing I do want to know, and that is, clearly, I said your show is Urbex. Can you explain what that is and a little bit about that and kind of where that lives inside of you?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about urbex. I think like a lot of photography, everyone has their own definition or their own criteria. Urbex is short for urban exploration, and for me, it's basically that. It's looking or kind of hunting for areas in cities that kind of have either been left alone or abandoned, especially like old buildings that just kind of were literally just forlorn. Someone locked the doors and walked away, and over the course of years, um, just general weather and nature take over, and you're left a lot with these really awesome, very, very, a lot of times kind of scary places that, some of them can pose some dangers in terms of like they might have some asbestos in it or lots of broken glass. But there's something really beautiful about it, about how like at some point the clock stopped in that building, but it's still there, and you walk around and like I've been to like these abandoned schools where the classrooms are still there, but everything is gone and gutted, and there are holes everywhere. And to me, it's just a really, really beautiful, beautiful thing to see. And for me, I like it because I'm a big fan of texture. I'm a big fan of detail, and a lot of times these scenes are very, very they're target rich. So there's a ton of different things you can shoot there with all the different textures, and I think people like it. I think people respond to it because it's kind of like a car accident, really. It's rubberneck. You kind of have to stop, like just think, like my God. This used to be a school. Kids used to kind of, or this used to be a hospital, and people were mended here, and now it's just this place.
I know I've often heard you refer to it as art in the abandoned, and I
Yeah.
love that phrase.
Thanks. Yeah, it is. It's art in abandonment. It's just kind of looking for the I guess the beauty. It's kind of a little sappy, but it's true. There is. To the right eye, I'm sure anything can be beautiful. Or rather, I should say, there's always, I think, someone who will find something beautiful, and there will always be someone who will find that same thing repulsive.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the key, I guess, for all of us is to find what it is that we find beautiful and shoot
Yeah.
it.
Well, that's art, isn't it?
That is art.
Being true to that. And speaking of said art,
Mhm.
you are one of the rare individuals that I've ever met that has managed to make a career, a daily life, a passion, a life partner, a world out of photography in a way that not that many people are actually able to accomplish. How'd you do that? That amazes me.
Yeah, it's a very lucky thing. A lot of it is just kind of serendipitous timing, but I'm a one-track person. I was just this past weekend. I was on a little road trip with a coworker of mine, and I've known him for a while, but when you're outside of the office, you have a new opportunity to get to know your colleagues. And so he asked me, he's like, "Do you do anything else other than photography?" And I didn't even have to think about it, and I knew the answer was no, not really. I don't. Photography is what I live and breathe. It's not what I went to school for. It's not what I really, I didn't get a camera. My first camera I didn't get that till my freshman year of college. So I was, 18 years old. So it just was again, just kind of like what I said before, where, we each, when we find something, we kind of find beauty in it, we know.
Mm-hmm.
Same with photography. It was just the one thing that, in my life, I think, didn't just stick. Stick is demeaning it, I think, or it's not giving it credit. It was pervasive. It like a root. and it kind of it like I remember first learning about the concept of aperture and shutter speed and ISO. Like I remember these things more than I remember, other things I think people would consider to be important life events. I remember my evolution as a photographer. I remember the first time I actually told someone. Someone asked me when I was walking around with my gear. I was in Provincetown, Rhode Island. Oh, is that Rhode Island or is it Massachusetts? It's Massachusetts. Massachusetts. And I had my tripod and my camera on my back, on my shoulder, and someone asked, "Oh, are you a photographer?" And up until that point, it was. I think it's a one of those things where people don't want to. If they admit it out loud, they feel like, I don't know what, like if I don't make X amount of money for my photography, I can't call myself a photographer. And I remember very vividly saying, yes, I'm a photographer, and that from that point, and that was a good number of years ago. From that point on, it really was everything.
Wow. Well, what's really interesting, though, is and I wasn't going to bring this up, but it applies because you're in an interesting position. You work with On One Software, which is one of the top plug-in manufacturers of photography, plug-ins, and you're in a position to really shape the way that we work with photos. I mean, you're not just like working for some software company. You're actually in there helping to shape the ideas and the next and the next and the next of how we're going to be dealing with photography and how we're going to be processing photos and even think about our details and colors and things like that. And that's very unique.
Yeah, that's the fact, and you kind of touched on it with your last question, the fact that I get to do that as my I hate even calling it a job. I don't know what it is, profession, I guess, my vocation, but because it's not a job. This is I'll stay in the office till 7, 8, 9 o'clock. It's not a chore. It's everything we do is photography related, especially what I do. And so yeah, it's a joy to kind of think of creative ways to teach people. And that was another thing, took a while to wrap my head around is my job here. Yes, it revolves around the software we make for photography, but I very much shape how what I do in helping to make other people better photographers.
Yep.
And that you don't ever want to do people a disservice in that respect. If I teach someone about photography, I want it to be the best possible to help them be the best photographer. So that requires a certain amount of confidence in yourself, and so all of this stuff kind of took so many years to the point where I feel confident in being able to say, hey, I can teach you this. So
yeah, it's confidence, and I think it's also just knowing you're also a visionary of sorts in that way, in just the way that you see it. I mean, you're so true to the helping people and to the vision of looking forward. It's just really, really inspiring to
thank you
to be around you and to do all that.
That's
you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
And so then, as a visionary, what are you working on now, like for your next thing, whether it's your own work or professionally or whatever? What's next for you?
Well, so professionally, what I'm most excited about is about 2 weeks ago I launched a new program at On One called Perfect Inspiration.
I love that program.
Thanks. That was again, why this is not a job for me, why I don't consider this a job. This was not some like, oh, go Brian, go do this. This was a serious endeavor. It took months of planning. To get everything the way you see it now was not just a let's occupy some time. We really do care about inspiration, about not just, hey, you bought our software, here's how to use it, but how to be a better photographer. So I'm trying to share through anecdotes and videos and sample downloads how I do it. How I do it is not necessarily how you have to do it, but hopefully from the inspiration side you can glean that. From a personal side, Karen, I recently moved here to Portland, Oregon, so I'm from the Northeast. I'm from New York City, and I transplanted to the other side of the country, and I've experienced this kind of like not a reawakening, an awakening to landscape, to nature, because I've never been surrounded by so much of it in such a thick way. So I've been, the urban and the urbex, I do miss it. I did. You and I went to that one place in Portland that burned out building, and that was great. That was just like nostalgia, because that's what I live for. But all the nature and the landscapes and the waterfalls and the gorge, and I was just shooting this weekend, and I was so frustrated with myself because it's just photography that I'm not used to.
Mm-hmm.
And frustrated, not in a bad way, almost like, man, I want to get a good shot, and you're trying to figure out as a photographer, like, what works here, so it's fantastic. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
That's often how I feel coming into your environment. It's like, where do you get the good shot? Because I'm more used to the landscape thing. That's awesome.
It's a good point. I never really think about it because I do remember you and I shooting and I remember we had that conversation. It's a really interesting point.
It really is. It really is part of a lifelong goal to get good at all of it.
And that's what isn't that such a great thing about photography?
Yeah.
You can go pick up portrait photography. You can go pick up, black and white. You can go pick up using studio strobes.
Yeah. It's never ending. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it, and I love you, and I'm so glad that you are part of this little gallery show, and I hope everybody enjoys your show as much as I do. It is fantastic. So
thank you. Thank you for letting me be a part of it, and I love you right back.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Bye.